All right, I'm now gonna share my screen. It is an honor to be with you. My name is Dan Brown. As Kimberly said, I get to work in the ESP quality department in the NEA, biggest labor union in the country. So I'm honored to get to work with Tamika Mays, who's going to be your guide through much of this session. And I just wanted to underscore what Kimberly said about keeping the conversation going in the chat, in the Q&A. I've had the honor to get to know a handful of people who are on this session live, an incredible group. We're talking ESP Leadership Institute tonight. And I'm sure I'm missing a couple, but I saw Jill Scarcelli and Shaniqua Griffin, who were members of the class, the ESPLI graduates that just finished, and alongside the 4 panelists that we'll get to hear from tonight. So I am going to hand it off to Tamika Mays, who is an incredible ESP practitioner from Delaware, an incoming elected officer in her state affiliate, this year serving as a full-time fellow in the ESP quality department, and an amazing colleague, and an alum of the Leaders for Tomorrow program, the forerunner of this initiative. So Tamika, you are gonna carry us forward. Over to you.
Thank you, Dan, for that great introduction. Everybody knows who I am now. As Dan said, I am working in the ESPQ department as a fellow this year. So happy to see the names popping up in the chat. Many of them I've recognized and have worked with many of you over the years. And of course, the recent graduates of the ESPLI program that we'll be talking about tonight. I definitely saw Jamie there. Yep, there she is in the chat. So hello to everyone. As Dan said, I am a leader within my local and my state affiliate from Delaware, and really excited to have the opportunity to work with and train these leaders from all across the country. The NEA ESPLI Leadership Institute is a powerful leadership development program that is grounded in diversity, equity, and cultural competence, and offered exclusively to NEA ESP leaders from across the country. The member-led program brings together the overarching NEA leadership competencies to train NEA ESP leaders to be influential and effective leaders in their schools, their unions, and their communities. ESPLI is a competitive program that requires a commitment over the course of 11 months, during which time participants train intermittently, which results in strong bonds amongst the members from all across the country, and of course, solid leadership development. The program, as Dan explained, started in 2007 as Leaders for Tomorrow, LFT, you may know it by, and was revised in 2019 and rebranded as ESPLI Leadership Institute. To date, over 200 members have graduated from this program. Participants commit to three in-person trainings. There's webinars, outside readings, and a completion of a capstone project attached to this program. Targeted training across an array of leadership areas include, but not limited to, understanding your use of self, personal strengths and weaknesses, advocacy through political action, strategies and impact of internal and external organizing, racial and social justice, communications, intentional engagement with their association, both local and state affiliates. To graduate from ESPLI, the participants must identify and implement a capstone project, which you'll hear more about tonight, that reflects on the growth as an ESP leader and puts into practice at least one skill that they've learned or content area that they've learned throughout the program. Capstone should address a challenge or fill a need that's unique to either your local or your state affiliate, and focus on either a work site, your association, your community, or student impact. Through the capstone process, participants will engage in an exercise of reflection, presentation to demonstrate the application of the skills taught in the program. They learn from each other, but they also have an opportunity for NEA to gain insight into the impact of the program. So as Dan said, I think I was lucky when I went through Leaders for Tomorrow, because we were not required to do a capstone project. And I must say, I've been beyond impressed with the capstones that were presented from this group that you see here on the screen, our most recent graduates. You will hear from just a few of them. So we have 4 graduates who will be presenting a portion of their capstone projects today. And we're going to start with Jahaira Rodriguez. She is an ESP out of Massachusetts. She is an amazing leader, very vocal and outgoing. And I know that you guys will feel the passion to understand the important work that she's doing in Massachusetts. So Jahaira, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Tamika. Hello and welcome, everyone. I'm super excited to share with you guys my capstone project. My capstone project was about building inclusive spaces for ESPs and members of color. Can we go to the next one? My why is that I understand that as an educator of color, we have so much work to do. So I wanted to make sure that everybody understood the work that we need to do, creating inclusive spaces for everybody to feel welcome, to feel that they belong. One of the things that we did, and it was the first time that it happened, after the death of, oh my goodness, George Floyd, we did a rally. It was the first time that educators were there present. And it was such a powerful moment when I started calling our educators to come up and just look down and see our students looking at us and knowing that we were there for them and we will continue being there for them, not only in our classroom, but in our community as well. Another thing is that I always believe that words matters. So one of the things that I had done is to create a new business item to submit to my state union, which is Massachusetts Teacher Association, because I know that that does not include all educators. So I created a new business item that was passed in our annual meeting to change the name of our organization. People were so excited, and instead of just going crazy, we created a task force that will do this work and make sure that we create a democratic process for all members of MTA to feel welcome, to feel heard, and we are still in the process. And what you see as the new business item was our flyer and the members of that task force that is working to make sure that we have an inclusive name for our organization. Challenges. First of all, I was called racist because I started a book discussion of white fragility, which is kind of funny because white fragility was written by a white woman, but that's a big story for another time. I was denied a grant to pay paras, to pay ESPs to do the work, because at the end of the day, we cannot continue doing things for free. It's not fair. We have second and third jobs to be able to have a living wage, and we should be paid for our experience and our knowledge. But just to let you know, just because they denied me that first one, didn't mean they deny me the second one, because I always have a plan from A to C to make sure that things are going to happen. What did I learn? I learned that I'm passionate about my work. I learned that people wanted to have these conversations. I learned that words do matter. In conclusion, another work that I did, I'm very proud of the work, not only for myself, but all the people that work with me. The work, it was not only by myself, but I have a great group of paras and ESPs in general, because we are so powerful and we sometimes don't realize it. This was the first time that we did our state ESP conference, and it was the first time that people were looking at these big posters saying what's in the name. I want every member to feel that they belong, that they feel identified, that they feel that they can say I am powerful and I feel comfortable in my union. And that's what the work that I did and I continue doing. And I want to make sure that you guys understand how powerful this program is, the ESP leadership. It had brought us not only knowledge, but it had brought us together. I had learned, I have a family in my ESPLI fellow leaders, and I am so grateful for the opportunity. Thank you so much for allowing me to speak, for listening, and if you need anything, just reach out to Jahaira Rodriguez from Massachusetts. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Jahaira. This is, like I said, just a small, real snapshot of all of the work that Jahaira has done, from making inclusive spaces for members within their state affiliate, their local, and for students. So going across several impact areas there. So thank you so much for all of your work, Jahaira. Next up we have Cheryl. Cheryl is an ESP member from Ohio, a fantastic leader who has, her capstone really inspired me. She's doing amazing work in her state with racial, social, and economic justice. And I'll let her share a little bit about the work that she's doing.
Thank you, Tamika, and hello, everyone. My name is Cheryl Williams. I am not only a local leader, but also an ESP at large for the state of Ohio. My journey in education began in 2001. I started after 17 years in the private sector, and the owner sold the business out from underneath us. I had decided that I wanted to join a job that had a union. And so I began as a cook. It was my first experience at that, and my hat's off to all the cooks out there. Hardest 3 hours of the day that I had ever worked. My experience had been in office management. And so I continued my journey and ended up in Dublin City Schools in Ohio, where I found out that the previous district that I worked in was not a member of NEA, was not an NEA affiliate. So when I got to Dublin and I found out that the teachers and the ESPs were all part of the same state and national organization, I was so happy to sign those papers, right? Starts with the ask. And so when I became president of the Dublin Support Association about 11 years later, I did everything that I could to learn more about being a leader, including attending national ESP conferences put on by NEA. The first one that I went to, Lily was still a vice president. So I loved learning. I loved being a part of an experience that included ESPs from all over the nation. And so I was hooked right from the beginning. So when the ESPLI became available again in 2019, I applied and was grateful to be accepted into the program. I felt like I had been doing the work for the association, right, as a local leader and also committee members. But little did I know that through this experience with the ESP Leadership Institute, I would get the ask again by my state president. So when I was appointed to the Strategic Priorities Oversight Committee for the state of Ohio, I spent a couple meetings just sitting and listening and trying to figure out, why am I here? And it was a lot to learn. I had never written a rubric before, as I said in my slide. And so my initial response was like, how am I going to contribute to this? But I will tell you that because of my ESPLI experience, I soon found out that I was needed on that committee, and I was ready to serve all 122,000 members of the Ohio Education Association. And then when we were charged with creating the fourth strategic priority for Ohio around racial, social, and economic justice, I had already learned so much from my experiences in this program and with ESP conferences that I was ready. Then we find out at the end, as Tamika said, at the end of the this is sharing our strategic priority number 4 on the slide there. This is what we worked with the entire board of OEA to write, and it has been in implementation, and we are now beginning to measure the success of our priority and how it affects the work that we do in Ohio. So as Tamika said, we had to come up with these capstone projects, right? And I didn't know what that really meant. I was a secretary and had never been a classroom teacher and had never been through a process like this before. But it didn't take long to figure out what my topic was going to be on. I had already done the work for OEA. I was ready to share with my ESPLI members the work that I had done as a part of the ESP, as a part of this committee, but as the only ESP that was on this committee at the time. So we have learned so much from each other across the nation. It is a fantastic program, the ESPLI. Don't be intimidated by the thought of the capstone project as I was in the beginning, because just by being here tonight, you show that you are dedicated to the work of the organization, that you are constantly learning, that you have a love of learning, and you too can be a part of this great program. I saw Dan had put the information in the chat about being able to apply in the summer. So if it's something, on your leadership journey, if it's something that you would like to do, I encourage all of you to step out of your comfort zone a little bit, because boy, will this prepare you to take your leadership to the next level. So I think the NEA and the ESP quality department and Tamika and Dan and all of the wonderful people that we've met through NEA and my brothers and sisters from the ESPLI program for this opportunity to share with you the exciting opportunities that NEA continues to bring to ESPs. Thank you.
Thank you, Cheryl. And I promise you, that was not a sponsored ad. Thank you so much, Cheryl. All of the wonderful things that she's sharing about the program. Cheryl said she was ready for the work simply because of the training that she had through this program. So next up, we have Crystal Roberts, an ESP from Georgia, and very intelligent and one of our quieter leaders, but not any less powerful than the two that you just heard. So let's take it away, Crystal.
Hi, everybody. Like Tamika said, my name is Crystal Roberts. I'm from Georgia. I wanted to focus on the cost of living because this is something that's always been important to me. A funny story is that we were in one of our sessions for ESPLI, and Amber, who's one of our directors, one of the leaders, she brought up some statistics, and I was like, I didn't know what I was going to do my capstone on, but once she started putting those numbers up, it hit me right then. And so this was kind of where I got my focus. But growing up as an educator's daughter, I got to see the ins and outs of the community from a different lens. So this was important to me. Next slide, please. Okay, I wanted to focus on modest beginnings because I needed to build an understanding for anybody seeing this about where I come from or what district I'm in, and to see why this is important to me. So I grew up in a small town. It was pretty rural. The school was actually a brand new elementary school, but as a child, you see all these resources in the school, and then you have the community that doesn't have anything. The school had everything, unlimited resources, computers, when nobody could afford computers in the area. So that's pretty much a baseline of what we're going from. Next slide. Okay, and so this slide, you'll see the picture of the town in the background. This is the town that the school is in. I wanted to show you that the town is actually separated by the main street. So one side had resources, one side didn't. Let's see, and I also said that one side had more certified staff. We can go to the next slide. So my why, my mom is an educator. I think I mentioned that earlier. But I grew up with a parent who cared about her community. So her being a teacher in this community, she definitely went out and she saw people and she made friends. And so we made friends and we saw people. And just riding around, I would always see, this isn't right. All these people worked at my school, but they were barely making ends meet. And so I didn't think it was okay, but everybody else was okay with it. And so something needed to change, but how? And so this is where my capstone comes into play. Next slide, please. I did a lot of research and I looked up the support staff pay scale. And for my district, if you can look at it, I broke it down a little bit. Our salary cap for our district is 16 steps. You can't go higher than that. If you work 16 years, you're at your limit. The custodians in our district, they work 245 days compared to a paraeducator who would work for 190 days. And so, you know, that's a huge difference. But a custodian would only look to make around $21,000 a year. And the highest they could make is around $31,000, which is still below the living wages in Georgia. And so a paraprofessional or paraeducator will start off making $18,500. And after you work 16 years, you would end up making $27,000, which is also below the cost of living in Georgia. Next slide. So I wanted to figure out how to do things. And as Tamika said, I am one of the quieter people. So I do things a little bit differently. I'm not the go out in front of people. I like to go to people one by one. I'm quiet, I do my research. And I reach out to the people who I know don't have an issue speaking out or doing these things. And I don't mind being in the background. So I use my network that I build doing that and my connections to inform others. I've also, something I've done with this is I've started a meeting with my my director to actually focus on some of the pay. So I'm doing some more research and we'll go from there. Right. That's it.
Thank you so much, Crystal. As I said, quieter, but not any less powerful, building networks of relationships with people in her area to help move forward the important work for members and students. Yes, next up we have Sandra McDermott out of Tennessee, and she's doing some really important work to help keep ESPs in the field. That it's becoming harder and harder, and she'll share some of what she's doing on her end to really motivate and support ESPs as they come into the work.
Ready?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Okay, just let her in. Sorry, my mother's here to visit. Just let her in and tell her to be quiet. Okay, our local was invited to Washington, D.C. for the NEA, Lord have mercy, mentoring program. And we went through the program and we wanted to implement it, but then COVID happened. So we didn't do anything with it. And when I got into the ESPLI class and knew I had to do a capstone, it's like, oh, okay, let's do the program. We started very small because we are a small local, and we had our why is Bartlett does not train our ESPs very well. So we wanted to support them so that we can learn to keep them as our employees. Want them to feel comfortable with what they were doing with our district. Next one. We targeted clerical services, food services, paraeducators, and we ended up with 3 paraeducators that we mentored. We sent out surveys to see who might want to get in a program like this. And 3 mentors were chosen, 3 mentees were chosen. And with those results from those surveys, they do not feel supported by our district. And we really already knew that. But we live in our district, we work in our district, and we want to keep those people working in our local schools. So we went ahead and did the program, and The feedback from the program was really good. They met with their mentees at a Starbucks, or they met at school. They did whatever worked for their, their mentee, so that they could get the training in. We had NEA member benefits come out and meet with them as well, so that they knew more about what their membership offered. And we ended up doing a survey at the end, and those results were they loved it. They thought we should do it again. They got more than they thought they were going to get from the program. Let's see, the best part, next slide. The best part was discovering that NEA has PD that they can use and learn a lot of what we don't always have time to teach them, or let's see, they really didn't think anything we could do different would be better. They were all happy with it. And we didn't actually train them with their job. We just let them know what our school has to offer, where they can get help if they need it, where they can get PD if they need it, just anything and everything to help them. But it was a great program, and we will do it again next year. We're going to try to expand it. We only did it in one school this year. We had to start small. Our board does not support us in this endeavor. So we did start small, and we'll move to another school hopefully next year. And that's about it.
I want to take a moment and say that two things. One, this cohort ran through the time of the pandemic, and though they were not close to each other proximity wise, they really did grow into a family during that time, checking on one another and supporting one another. Many of them even now supporting each other in the chat. And I also want to mention that it's important to note that the work that these ESP leaders are doing was not additional work. This was work that was happening within their state affiliate that they were working on, that they then used for their capstone project. So this wasn't additional work. That was a direct result of the training and the motivation and passion that they have for the organization. So thank you so much, ladies, for sharing. We'll take some time. I forgot to share that the application period will be open this summer for this program, but we'll take some time and answer some questions if there are any. And if you have a question, you're gonna want, thank you. Amber dropped the link in the chat for you. If you have any questions, we're going to drop it in the Q&A folder. Any questions for any of the panelists here?
So we've got a couple in from Joyce. And this was to Crystal. Joyce asked, what separated the schools? What made one side of the street more economically advantaged than the other? So Crystal, if you're available to unmute.
Oh, I am. So the school wasn't separated. The town was the slide that you saw with the town, the road. It was separated by the street that you saw in the PowerPoint. The white educators were the certified professionals who made way more than the Black educators on the other side, who were the para-educators, the custodians, just all the support staff. That's what it was.
Thanks, Crystal. And Joyce also put in a question in the Q&A. And folks, it's right next to the, near the chat function across that bar. If you're interested to key in your own questions, Joyce also asked, how can you get more funding to support schools? And I'm imagining that's through like ESP leadership. Like how can, you play a role in advocating for the funding? So any of our panelists and Tamika who want to take a crack at it, just unmute, go for it.
So I can tell you that not only for school, but there's so many resources and we don't know about it. And I do know that soon NEA is going to be talking about the money of how to like write. Am I right? Do you guys have something about writing to ask? I don't know. Somebody told me about it. So what I did is like, I figured out where was the money in my union, right? There's different grants. That's what it is. And we need to learn how to access those grants. So what I did was I researched what kind of grants that I have in my state and I asked for it, but always knowing and having in mind what kind of work you want to do with that kind of money that you get and have something concise. Like for me, it was important that ESPs were getting paid to do the work of organizing. So we asked for $150,000. That was to promote also the ESP Bill of Rights. So there's money out there, but we need to learn how to access it. And I think that NEA does a good job by sharing and allowing us to understand the grants that are out there. And I think that's a start.
And I'm going to add into the chat, following up on Jahira's comment about grants, very, very helpful. NEA offers a number of grants, and they are of all different grain sizes. What was formerly known as the state and local grants, which affiliates can apply for, are for larger dollar figures, and they're now called GPS grants, and encourage you to look at the information about those that I'll put in the chat shortly. So Mia, another ESPLI superstar, asked Crystal, are you seeing strides to improve the equity on either side?
Okay, so I think that's a great question. But this answer, it depends on the administrator of the school in a way. From experience and what I've seen, some administrators, they create programs. Let's see, I think I typed it down. They create programs that support equity on both sides. Their hiring practices and in the community programs that they put out there for the students in the community. But under our last administrator, we had programs that students and parents could come to. We had more diverse staff in the school, but under our new administrator, the diversity has gone down, community programs are gone. So it really depends on the administrator in that school.
Thanks, Crystal. All right, looks like we have a question from Donna asking, do you meet over Zoom? How many commitment days or hours related to being a member of the ESPLI cohort? What does the actual commitment look like?
It's an 11-month commitment. And this is the first ESPLI group to graduate, but there are 3 in-person trainings. And then there are webinar commitments in between those training times, and also reading, and then of course the completion of the capstone project. The 3 in-person trainings, I believe, are around 5 days of in-person training. So that will be, I guess, 3 weeks of in-person training time, webinar time, and capstone development.
Thanks, Tamika. We have a couple questions about Sandra, your program in Tennessee. Jill asked, how long did your mentoring program last into the year? And Mia also asked, do you identify those who are in need of mentoring, or do you just do you focus on all new staff for the mentoring? So if you could share a little more, Sandra, about the program at your local.
Okay, we did it for about 4 months. And we went to everyone and gave them surveys just to see who might feel like they needed more support. And that's how we did it. We did it through surveys and everybody could apply.
Great.
Next year, we'll do a longer time, you know, with the capstone, we had to get it done. But next year should probably be, I would think, 6 months out of the 9 that were in school.
Thank you, Sandra. Alexandra, really glad you're here. Has put 2, really helpful questions in here about specifically for the custodial services career family. How can we better ourselves become better at our positions? How can we start our own training to help others and each other do better? So I think this question could apply to, every career family, but Alexander is asking specifically about custodial, and I'll open it up to any of the panelists or Tamika.
Hi there, this is Cheryl. That's a great question, and there are lots of opportunities for learning more about your specific career family through the professional growth continuum that's offered by NEA, as well as some of the micro-credential programs. So I invite you to seek more information from the website, and maybe they could put some of that information in the chat for you as well. But there's great opportunities, like Sandra was saying, sometimes your district doesn't bring the good professional development to you. You have to kind of go find it yourself. And this is a great benefit of membership, is being able to continue to learn and grow in your careers and in leadership.
Thank you, Cheryl. Great answer. And I will put in the chat a link to NEA's page about the professional growth continuum, which can then send you towards the micro credentials, demonstrating, your skills and earning badges for them, and then other opportunities anchored to these standards for what ESPs need to know and be able to do in each career family. Okay, so we have some logistics about the ESPLI program. Mia wanted to emphasize about the application and the qualifying process. So Tamika, could you speak a little about that? Or feel free to pass it off over to another leader about what it takes to be selected for ESPLI, and also who pays for it, who pays for the in-person training and travel, was asked from Trevette.
Yep, I'm actually going to pass that to one of our ESPLI leaders who would like to share their personal experience around applying for the program.
Hi again, it's me. So the application is kind of super fun. First of all, you had to make a video, and there's some questions that you had to do, and you use the video and just show a little bit who you are and why it's so important. There's stipend for the program as well. They send documents to your school, either to your superintendent, your principal, to ask for the time. If you lose any kind of earnings, they will pay you back. So, when I was listening, it sounds like it's so stressful with the capstone, with this one, but there's so many benefits, like the relationship that you build with one each other, how much you help one each other. We cry, we laugh, we jump. If you had the opportunity to do it, don't even think about it, just go for it. Because even that, if you're not as vocal as others are, even the quiet ones learn so much. And it's just an experience that is very difficult to explain, because there's so many beautiful feelings out of it. So don't think about it, just go for it. That's all I can tell you.
These were great questions in the Q&A section. So Tamika, I'm going to hand it over to you now to see if you had any items or questions you wanted to pose that hadn't come up yet. So I'll be quiet now. Over to you.
I think we heard some of it, but I would like to pose a question to our leaders that we have here. And what advice would they have for anyone who is considering being a part of or even applying for the program?
Something I would say is get comfortable with being uncomfortable. There are a lot of things you're going to find out about yourself. There are boundaries you're going to push. It's just get comfortable with being uncomfortable. So it's worth the risk though.
I agree with Crystal. It is an opportunity to be surrounded by your fellow ESPs from all over the nation. We learn best from each other, and there are networking and interacting. I did my video in the car, kind of like Jerry Brooks, during my lunch hour one day. We had folks that had their students help them with their videos. So don't be intimidated by the process, just be you. It's a great opportunity to learn and grow.
Do we have time for one more question, Dan?
Yes.
Yep, this is for the leaders. I would like to know if there is one thing about the program that sticks with you the most, one learning or one aha moment that you like to share. Share it with us. And I see we have some graduates in the chat also giving their words of wisdom as well. So we welcome that.
I'll go first. My aha moment was when we did the True Colors training. That was in 2020, and it still sticks with me. That was when I first kind of realized what kind of leader I was. And I figured out where I fit in. And so that stuck out to me.
Thank you, Crystal. Did anyone else want to share? All right. All right,
Can I
Cheryl.
go ahead?
Go for it. Yep.
Okay, Crystal and I were by far the quietest people in that group. Now I am still petrified to stand up in front of a crowd of adults and speak, but I can do it now that I have been through that program. It's one of the most wonderful experiences I have ever been through. I would recommend it to anyone and everyone. I discovered through my video that I am the most country person I have ever heard speak. I did not know I was that country till I did that video, but now I know. So, but it's a wonderful program.
I will say that for myself, I think it was the aha moment when I realized that I deserved the seat at the table, that I had learned so much from this program, and that I had such great preparation to be a leader and step out of my comfort zone and continue to advocate for everything that ESPs need. We're continuing the work in Ohio with an Educator Voice Academy. There's so many great things going on across the nation. And again, my aha moment was just like, I can do this.
Thank you, Cheryl. Thank you for all of our panelists. And Dan, I think we are ready to wrap it up.
This is a recorded webinar. To request a general session specific certificate of completion as a participant of recorded sessions, please send your request by emailing espqweb@nea.org. All requests must include the session title and the on-screen certificate of completion code. Session certificates will not be provided if your viewer code is not included in the email request. Note, Due to limitations in our ability to track attendance after live sessions, requests for personalized certificates will only be provided for participants of live webinars, those whose attendance can be verified. The certificate received for viewing recorded sessions will be session specific, but will not include personalized names. On behalf of the Center for Professional Excellence and Student Learning's NEA ESP Quality Department, I would like to once again thank our members who spoke tonight and our colleagues in the Center for Professional Excellence and Student Learning at NEA for tonight's webinar presentation. And thank you all for your participation. Stay safe, stay healthy, and good night from the NEA ESP Quality Department.